Today, I'm going to show you how to create a dramatic sky in Photoshop. Hey guys, and welcome to Phlearn. My name is Aaron Nace, and you can find me on Phlearn.com, where we make learning Photoshop and photography fun. And in today's episode, I'm going to show you a great technique you can use to make your skies more dramatic in Photoshop. Now, it's relatively simple. You can do this in just a couple of minutes, and you can basically use these exact same techniques on any sky photo. And even better yet, you can download this image from today's episode. Just follow the link in the description right down below so you can practice on this photo. All right, guys, we got a great episode. Let's go ahead and jump into Photoshop. Okay, so here we are in Photoshop. This is our image, and it's gonna really lend itself to creating a nice dramatic sky. Now, you can see we already do have some really nice cloud detail here, and what I wanna do first is isolate the sky, and then just bring the detail, really like take those shadows and bring them darker, and make the highlights a little bit lighter, and just make it a lot more dramatic. So we're gonna start off by creating a selection here of the actual sky. So let's grab our magic wand tool. You can hit W for your magic wand tool, and then I'm gonna click here on my background. Now, you can see as I'm clicking around, it's only selecting part of the sky. That's totally okay, but if you wanted to select more of the sky, basically just bring your tolerance up. So you can see my tolerance is set to 8 right now. I'm just gonna bring that up to about 15. There we go. Selecting a little bit more. Let's bring that up to about 20. There we go. You can also just type in a number there. All right, selecting a little bit more. That looks pretty good. Let's go up to 25, and that's gonna be good. So here at 25, I'm gonna hold down the Shift key now, and you can see when I hold down the Shift key, it just adds that little plus icon right to my magic wand. So this is going to add to my selection. So let's just click a couple times here in the background over each of these areas, and each time I hold down Shift and click on an area, it's going to add that area to my selection. Okay. Now you want to make sure to zoom in here, okay, and make sure that you have all of your background selected, and right there looks pretty good. Now in this case, I've got a little bit of my guy selected also. You can see right there, I'm going to hold down Shift and make sure the background is selected there too. So my guy is selected right here. Now if you're ever curious as like what is actually selected and not selected, I recommend hitting the slash key on your keyboard or the Q button, and that's gonna bring up what's known as your quick selection. Okay, so the Q, there we go, on your keyboard, this is gonna show me a nice visual representation of what's actually selected in my image. Just makes it a little bit easier to see. Okay, so now I'm gonna zoom in here because we did select out part of like his arm and part of the bike. So not really a big deal. You can actually change this selection while it's active, and you can use any of your selection tools to do this. So my magic wand tool is great for selecting large areas. Now, if I want to select a smaller area, I'm going to go over here to my lasso tool. Let's hit Q again. And now, again, if I hold Shift, you're going to see I've got a little plus here next to my lasso tool. But if I hold Alt or Option, I have a little minus. Okay? And that's what I want to do. I want to minus this area from my selection. So let's just hold Alt or Option, and I'm going to create a selection you can see right there. And I'm just minusing this out of my selection. So I'm just saying, hey, don't select that. Really, really easy. Just like draw it right around the area you don't want to select, and you're good to go. Let's just navigate right down here, hold down Alt or Option, okay, and we're gonna minus this area out of our selection as well. Okay, so let's go and hit the Q button again. Okay, this all looks good. I'm gonna go right up here and make sure I minus this area out as well. So hit Q, hold down Alt or Option, and I'm just gonna draw right around there. There we go. Because you don't want to be affecting, I mean, today's episode is about making skies more dramatic, right? Not like dudes' heads more dramatic. So you just want to make sure that you are not selecting the actual people or buildings or trees and things like that in your image. Okay, so again, Q is a really great little shortcut that's going to show you what's actually selected and not selected. Okay. So now that we have our selection active, we're ready to load this as a layer mask. And I'm going to create a new group and load this as a layer mask to that group. That way, whatever I put inside of this group, it's only going to be visible in the sky. Cool. Let's go ahead and show you guys how to do that. So jumping back into Photoshop, you can see my selection is still active here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new layer. Just click on your new layer icon here. and I'm going to group this layer with itself. You can do that by hitting Control or Command G to group with itself. Okay, so we've got a new layer and we've got a group. And keep in mind, we're going to put the layer mask on the group, so anything inside of this layer here, or sorry, anything inside of the group is going to only be visible in the sky. So with our selection active, just like this, we're going to click on our layer mask icon. So let's go ahead and click there. So clicking on our layer mask, it takes the selection and it puts that into the layer mask itself. So you can see right here, this is our layer mask. Now, anything that's white on a layer mask is going to be visible, and anything that's black is going to be invisible. Okay, so we can see very clearly here that the sky is white, okay, and the ground and our rider here, those are black, meaning that anything I put inside this group was going to be invisible. Okay, so let's go ahead and use this just as a little bit of a test. So this layer 1, this is inside of my group, right? So layer 1, if I just grab my brush tool, okay, I'm going to just grab a nice bright color here, and there we go. And I'm just going to start painting here on layer 1. So as I do this, you can see painting here on layer 1, everywhere I paint is only going to be visible in my sky. You can see it's like going right behind that rider, and you know, I could put a dragon up here or something if I wanted. Not in today's episode, but basically that's the idea. So anything that I put inside of this group is only going to be visible in the sky. Okay, so now we got a perfect example. Our sky is cut out and we're ready to start making it more dramatic. So jumping back into Photoshop, what we're gonna do is I'm just going to clear everything that's on this layer, okay? I don't need all that pink. That was just to show you guys. So I'm gonna hit Control or Command A, which is gonna select everything, and then I'm gonna hit the delete key, and that's just gonna delete everything on that layer. So you can see we've got a blank layer now. Okay, now comes the fun, making the sky a little bit more dramatic. So we're gonna start off with our brush tool here. So let's hit B for the brush tool, and then you can see we've got some dark clouds here, and I just wanna make them a little bit darker, okay? We wanna add more drama. So what we're gonna do is click on our color picker here, and I'm just gonna make sure we pick black. So let's just choose black as our foreground color here. So now with our brush tool, I'm going to choose a large soft edge brush. Okay, let's go ahead and make a large soft brush. I'm just going to start painting right over here in my dark clouds. There we go. Now I know this doesn't look great right now, guys. We're going to blend it in just a second. All right, so just kind of painting dark where I want the clouds to just have a little bit more contrast and just a little bit more dark areas to them. Okay, so that's it. Basically just painted black over top of my sky. Now comes the really fun part. We're gonna be using a tool called Blend If. And with Blend If, we can make this black that I just painted on there, I can make that only show up in the dark areas of the sky. So it's gonna take those dark areas and make them even darker. All right, let's show you how to do it. So we've got our dark area here painted inside of this group. So again, it's only showing up here where behind the rider here in the sky. So to access Blend If, all you have to do is double click right here on this gray area or go to FX and down to your blending options. So let's go ahead and click on our blending options. Okay, now here within our blending options, you're gonna see, make sure you're clicked right here where it says blending options. Here at the bottom, you're gonna see our Blend If sliders. So we have a slider for this layer and a slider for the underlying layer. Now, what this does is it basically allows you to choose whether this is going to be visible or not visible on the underlying layer. So underlying layer here, that's our background layer, right? So visible or not visible where our background layer is. And I can choose to have that either from the lights or the darks. Okay, so let's go ahead and grab this slider. I'm going to bring this from the right to the left, and we're going to show kind of what it does. This is a crude example first. So from the right to the left, okay, and then from the left to the right. All right, so it's going to start disappearing from the darks here on the left and disappearing from the lights here on the right. Now you can see as I do this, this doesn't look good at all, right? It's like very crude and blotchy, and it really doesn't look good. And the reason is this little area here, this is actually two little sliders that we need to separate out, okay? This is two sliders, and once we separate them out, it's going to add feathering, and things are going to look a lot better. So let's hold Alt or Option and click here, and now you can see how that went from one slider, you can see that it's just one here, it broke it out into two, but you have to hold down Alt or Option to do that. So let's break that into two by holding down Alt or Option. Okay, and this is going to make the layer that we're on, which is our layer 1, okay, it's going to make this layer not visible where the underlying layer, you can see it says underlying layer, is lighter. Okay, so that's basically how blend diff works. And blend diff is such a powerful, amazing tool in Photoshop. There's so many different uses for it, and it's really great for blending things together. So if this is the first time you're playing around or seeing blend diff, this is a big, big thing in Photoshop that's really, really powerful. Okay, well, let's just keep going here. So again, we've started out all the way to the right here. I'm gonna hold Alt or Option and click and drag the slider from the right to the left. Okay, and as I do that, we're basically seeing this whole background area is now, you can see it's showing up in the dark areas of my photo. Not only that, but I can take this slider and I can make it start to disappear from like even farther from the lights. So I've got a lot of control over how this layer actually shows up in my image. So let's go with something right about there. I think that looks pretty good. So let's hit OK there. And just like, we're gonna just turn this off and on real quick. So let's just turn this off and back on, and we can see, basically I just painted black in that area, okay? And I used blend diff to make it only visible where the dark areas existed in my image, which is really cool. Now, this layer is set to normal, okay? So it's meaning it's just gonna show up as black, right? It's a normal blending mode. If I change the blending mode to something like overlay, okay, you're gonna see it's gonna bring in some of the existing color in my image here. You can also set it to soft light. It's going to be a little bit more of a subtle effect there, okay? Or you can set it to multiply, which is going to be a little bit stronger of an effect. So this is your chance to just like basically sculpt your sky however you want. And I would recommend, like, obviously, like, that looks cool, and if I just duplicated this layer, it's like, whoa, that looks totally gnarly, but obviously it doesn't look real at this point. So I would recommend, I'm just gonna delete those layers. I would recommend doing this and making it look realistic, right? You want everything to still look pretty real. Okay, so that's adding some dark into the sky, which is a lot of fun. So now we're basically gonna use the same technique, but I'm gonna add some light into the sky as well. So we added some dark, we'll add some light as well, and we're gonna get more contrast in our sky. So to add some light, very easy to do. All we have to do is create a new layer here. And remember, because it's inside of this group, it's only gonna be visible in the sky. So let's go ahead and switch our foreground and background colors. So we're gonna be painting with white here, okay? And now we'll just paint with white here with our large soft edge brush. There we go. We'll just paint with some white here in the sky. All right. Just like that, maybe right behind the rider, we'll make that a little bit brighter. That'll help bring attention to him. Okay, so we've got some white there. Now, here what I want to do, again, we're going to use blend diff to make this not visible where the dark areas are. So let's just go ahead and click on this FX and go to blending options. Okay, there we go. And I'm going to hold Alt or Option, and then this time I'm going to go from the left-hand side to the right-hand side. All right, so before we went to the right, from the right to the left, okay, this time we're going from the left to the right. So that's your difference between your lights and your darks. So here you can see really just starting to add a little bit more drama to our sky. Now I don't want to go too far with this, but just a little bit more contrast. You can see if I go too far, it doesn't look realistic there, but just a little bit, just add some of that light color in the sky. There we go. So let's just turn that off and on, and you can see it gives these clouds like a little bit of a pop. See, just that highlight. And the cool thing is, it's only going to do this wherever I actually painted with the brush tool, okay? So it's a really nice tool to be able to like paint in where you want more or less drama in your image. All right, let's lower the dark area a little bit. Okay, we're looking great, guys. So we've got our darks in there, we've got our lights in there, and now we're going to add a little bit of color, and then we're going to be done. So let's go ahead and add some color into our sky. So we're going to create a new layer here. Okay, still all within this group, and we're gonna grab like a deep dark blue. Let's go a little bit more on the purple side, and I don't want it to be too saturated. If it's too far to the right, it's gonna be like too much color. So let's bring this over here to the left a little bit. There we go. So like a nice, like deep, like purplish blue, which I think is gonna look really nice with the green in the foreground. So let's hit OK. So we have a nice deep purple. Now we're gonna, isn't Deep Purple the name of a band? Sidetracked. I'm going to paint this here in my sky, and we're going to focus on the top area of the sky. All right. There we go. So just painting them in my sky, and you can see it's only going to show up here in the sky. Now, again, it's not going to look perfect right now because we need to blend it in. So let's double click right over here, or you can click on layer effects and go to blending options. Okay, and here we can change our mode. So we can change our mode from normal. Let's try overlay and see how that looks. Okay, let's try soft light and see how that looks. And the real tip with blending modes here is you really just want to like pick a few different blending modes and see what looks the best. That's really going to be your best way to deal with blending modes. I've been using Photoshop for many years, and most of the time I still just click through them and see what's best. Okay, let's try multiply and see how that looks. So multiply is going to make it nice and dark. Now keep in mind, you can use your blend modes here, like multiply, overlay, soft light, that sort of thing. You can use that. You can also use opacity to change how visible it is. And you can also use your blend if. So you can use all three of these things at the same time. So let's just say I bring this up to 100% visibility. Now I'm going to hold Alt or Option and click here and make this not visible where the lights are. So it's just going to show up in my dark. So now the dark areas you can see have a little bit, like they're a little bit darker here, okay? And they've got a little bit more of that like purplish color there. So if you wanted to do that, you can totally limit this to either the highlights or the shadows. Now in this case, I'm actually going to keep it visible where the whole sky is. I'm just going to make it a lot less opaque. There we go. So like this obviously looks pretty fake, but as I go down right about there, it's starting to look a little bit more real. So let's hit OK there, and I can turn this off and on. You can see it just adds a little bit of like dark area and drama to the sky. Let's bring our opacity down a little bit more. All right. There we go. And you can continue to do this, guys, with different colors and different themes and things like that. In this case, we have like an overcast sky, and it makes sense to have that be like, you know, deep, like dark blue and purple, things like that. But you can use these same techniques to add a little bit of light to your image. All right, I'm going to do one more thing because I think it'll be kind of fun. I'm going to add a little bit more light into the Honda right there. So this is totally unplanned. I actually was not planning on doing this in this episode. So let's go ahead and close up my, my group here. Now I'm going to make a new layer. Okay, so we've got a new layer here. We're going to use our gradient tool. So let's click on our gradient tool here. And I'm going to choose my gradient editor. I want to make sure it's a foreground to transparent gradient. So this one right here, okay, it says foreground to transparent. And that's going to take your foreground color, which is right here, and go to transparent. So let's hit OK. So again, we're on our gradient tool. We've got our foreground to transparent gradient, and we're going to be painting with our radial gradient. So basically, if I click here and drag out, it just creates like a radial gradient from, in this case, purple to transparent. Okay. Now in this case, I'm going to take my color here, and we're going to choose like a nice bright color. And you can actually use your eyedropper here to choose the color in the headlight. So let's do that. Let's choose the color in the headlight, and I'm going to just click and drag that out there. Just a little pop of color in the headlight there, and I can change this from normal down to like overlay. Okay, and you can see we have a little bit more color in our headlight. We can do soft light as well. All right, now I wouldn't probably do like light streaks in this case because it wouldn't make sense because it's not like night. It wouldn't make sense that you'd actually see those light streaks, but just a little bit more color, I think, actually does this image pretty cool. And you can, you know what, if I wanted to create another layer on top of that and do like a bigger one, you could do that and then do like soft light on this. And then, well, I'll just show you guys. Let's change this back to normal. Okay, so we've got a gradient here. It's just totally round, but I can actually transform this. So let's hit Controller Command T for our transform. Okay, and this is now this gradient, I could just transform this to any shape that I want. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold the Control or the Command key and click here on these left-hand corners, just like this, and just like drag them out like that, right? So we're just like, basically, you can see it pretty easily there. Okay, so I'm basically changing the shape of this. What was just round is now like a little bit more of like a headlight beam type thing, okay? And you can make this like larger or smaller. That's why like Photoshop is so much fun, because you can just do, all this stuff, and it's basically just playing around, right? So started out with just a radial gradient, and I can kind of stretch it out, and I can put it in place there. There we go. And I'm going to take this little control point and move it right to my headlight, okay? And then I can just rotate this right around as well. So I can have this be, like I can rotate, like obviously that doesn't look right? So we want to choose something that's like, all right, cool. It's like, yeah, that looks pretty good there. So let's hit enter there. And we've got our little headlight going on. Let's just give this a little bit of a blur because the bottom edge was a little bit too sharp there. So a little bit of a Gaussian blur. Okay, and then we'll just change this from normal down to overlay as well, or soft light. Totally works for that, just a little bit of a headlight beam. Or we could even just change this back to normal and then just really lower the opacity on it. So any one of those things would work. I'm gonna use the soft light because I think that looked the most realistic. All right, and let's just lower the opacity there just a little bit. So we've got a little bit of a headlight beam going on there, which I think looks pretty cool. Okay, we're gonna shift click the two of those layers and group them together by hitting Control or Command G, and we'll just turn our headlight off and on there, which is pretty cool. Now, just one more thing here at the very end, guys. If it's too much color, like I like that there's yellow there, but honestly, it's a little bit too yellow. It doesn't even look that real. Not a problem. So both of these layers have some yellow on them, right? So this layer has yellow on them, that layer has yellow on it. You can do this at any time. Just click on your layer and you can just go to Image, you can go to Adjustments, and you can go to Hue/Saturation. There it is. Hue/Saturation. And then, you know, this has got some yellow color, right? So if I wanted more yellow color, you just bring your saturation up on that. Okay, less of a yellow color, you just bring your saturation down, okay? And you could even change your color at this point if you wanted. Like if you wanted a green glow or whatever, you can totally do that too. Now in this case, we're not going to do that, but I'm just gonna change the saturation, lower it just a little bit, and that's gonna help it look more real. Okay, so we'll do this on the same one too. So we'll go to Image, down to Adjustments, over to Hue/Saturation, and we're just gonna bring the saturation of our color down a little bit. That's gonna make it not as yellow, and it's gonna make it look a little bit more real. Okay, so we've got our group of our headlights. Let's double click here and call this headlights. There we go, and we'll double click here and we'll call this sky. All right, pretty cool, guys. Well, we are done with our image, making our sky more dramatic. Let's go ahead and take a look at the before and the after. Here's our before and the after. All right, guys, that's it for today's episode, making skies more dramatic. And you can use these exact same techniques on any sky in Photoshop. If you want to do this on your own, just follow these key steps. Start off by making a selection out of your sky. In this case, I use the magic wand tool to make that selection. Hold down the Shift key to add to a selection and hold Alt or Option to minus away a selection. Once you've made your selection, go ahead and create a new layer and group it with itself by hitting Control or Command G. Then click on your layer mask icon. This is going to load your selection as a layer mask to that group. So anything you put inside of this group is only going to be visible where the group layer mask tells it's visible. In this case, just the sky. Next, we're going to be painting with black and white and using blend if to make it only visible in certain areas of the sky. So for instance, if you're painting with black and you want it to only be visible where the dark areas are, simply go to FX and down to blending options, then hold Alt or Option and click on the right-hand slider and bring that to the left. It's going to make sure that this layer disappears where the underlying layer is lighter, leaving it only visible where the underlying layer is darker, in essence making the dark areas even darker, adding drama. You can do the same thing with the lights, just in reverse. You can add some color using the same techniques, and to finish off today's episode, we added a little bit of light coming from the headlight of our motorcyclist. Guys, thanks so much for watching today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Now, you can actually download this exact image and practice on your own. Just follow the link in the description right down below. Thanks so much, guys. I'll Phlearn you later. Bye, everyone. And cut. That's a wrap. That's a wrap, folks. That's a wrap.